See, thanks, Anurag, and people who have spoken before me have sort of summarized the gist of what the real issues are when it comes to staying with the topic of what is the post-COVID scenario going to look like for the celeb endorsement space. I'm just going to throw a bit of context to it in terms of size of the landscape and the opportunity that we're staring at. Give or take, I think about 75% of all endorsements in India is still with the film stars and the movie star space. Sport occupies about 20%, give or take. And that's a small number, but there are values attached to those sports because they are not performers every day in terms of release, but they are performers on the field. And I can tell you with the two stars here and ask any of the sportsmen, the only thing that they want to go back to now is in front of a camera or take the playing field, face a ball that is coming to them at 150 Ks or get to the nets. I think that's all they want to do. I think the endorsement space is great, but at this point in time, they want to get back to their craft. They want to get back to what they love doing and the reason why they started doing what they're doing. Within the context of the endorsement sphere itself, I think if you look at from the brand side, categories such as personal care, hygiene, food and beverage will typically contribute about 30 to 35% of the total endorsements today. So just 3 or 4 categories will contribute a substantive amount of that. So how the dynamics are going to impact set of categories vis-a-vis another set of categories like a telecom or the startups or the Dream 11s or the tech companies is an entire dynamic altogether. So I don't think there is a single lens with which you can look at how this celeb space is going to evolve from it is going to be black or white. I think there is a sea change that will happen in various facets of the industry, pretty much like how it happens in any other disruption, or when any other disruption is caused. Real estate, smartphone, auto, e-commerce are all new sectors, and they rely a lot on celebs, largely male celebs, whereas the personal care, jewelry, banking, a lot of it relies on female celebs. And how are the dynamics for that going to change? Within this endorsement space, sport, as I said, is about 20%, give or take. And within that, I can count it at about roughly 350 endorsements happen in sports in a year, give or take. And that's a small number. It's 350. I'm not talking about the digital endorsements that these guys do, but the large mass endorsement space that we're talking about is no more than 300 to 350, of which cricket occupies probably about 80% of it. So that's a sizable number in terms of composition that you look at. And of that, 50 to 60% comes from 2 or 3 cricketers. You take a Virat, you take an MS, you take a Rohit, and probably Sachin in certain set of categories. That is the largest pie. In non-cricket space, I think there is a lot of female endorsement. That's a very, very encouraging sign. How are these dynamics going to change? There's an Olympic year coming up, which was scheduled to be this year, it will be moved to next year. What happens to the endorsement space in those areas is going to be very, very, very interesting to watch. The overall scenario, from my view, will remain more or less the same, but the composition and mix will change. And there was enough relevance about what Tapsi spoke about, the digital getting more preeminence. I think that will happen, and that is bound to happen. But if you segregate it from 2 standpoints, the user and the used, in a manner of speaking, which is the brand side and the celeb themselves side, I'm just going to run through 2 or 3 key points from each of it for elaboration later, probably. From a brand side, I think the category mix will change. F&B, personal care, and those set of categories which rely largely on celebs will continue to remain the same. I think that will not change dramatically. But the casual usage of celebs will go down. Consumer promo-led and, topical-led, and all of that will go down pretty steeply. And I think that's a change that we should expect. The tonality, I think Baman stressed it right at the top. The creative challenge and the tonality, if you put it at the top level, both Baman and Swarnam spoke about it. The tonality will lend itself in the short to medium term towards more serious, credible persona, because you want to establish the fact that if Amitabh Bachchan is using this, I think it's got more credence than Anurag Batra using it, so to speak. So if we
definitely for a shampoo, though I did use a L'Oreal in the morning, and that's an honest thing. But
I think
Pankaj, that is not working out well.
No, it's
Okay, let's go. Let's go. Sundar, let's go.
You know, Pankaj talked about expanding the market, creating the market demand. So
the persona will be in demand. The serious, credible persona in the short to medium term will be a little more sought after, and that side of personalities will probably come to the fore more evocatively in the short to medium term. As I said, casual usage of celebs will be a casualty. I think that will go down dramatically because of the economy. Till consumption comes back, I don't think that is going to be in the radar for them. The largest impact will probably be on startups. I think a lot of startups started to use a bit of celeb to push the awareness and gain rapid awareness to a purpose and cause. I think that will change. I'm not saying they will stop using it, but I think there will be newer models that will evolve. You know, from a standpoint of what those models are, I will talk about it from the celeb side. From the celeb side, I think there will be a move from the fixed time, fixed fee model to a slightly more blended model, which will include digital, which will include appearance, which will include endorsement, which will include equity, which may include partnership. I think a blended model of endorsement will take place. So we need to segregate what is a pure play endorsement, what is more an ambassadorial role. I think both of it will start to change. That may not happen in the FMCG kind of categories because that's not an equity play, but I think the startup category, the blended model will start to emerge. There will be substantive amount of digital contribution. Some of the cricketers or sports stars themselves earn about 25 to 30% of their total endorsement revenue only from digital platforms. And I think that will probably accelerate to a lot more wider spectrum of the celeb space. There will be newer personality that is being seen, whether it is people cooking or sweeping or swapping or giving serious messages outside of the gymming videos that sort of populated the digital media in the early phase of COVID. Newer personality sides of these celebs have emerged. And celebs have either cultivated it consciously or accidentally shown a side of theirs, which was never seen as that belonging to the personality. I think that will be picked up by smart marketeers and smart creative people to amplify and accelerate. So if there is time, people can still cultivate that persona of theirs or be talkative about that persona of theirs. Celebs themselves, last 2 points, Manish. Celebs themselves will need to get a little more serious about their brand and personality. One, I don't think they can live with deal maker agents. I think they will need slightly a better understanding of the landscape and slightly more mature approach to that, whether it's a short-term engagement or enlisting them as a part of their rostered set of professionals around them. I think that will be important, and that's going to be very critical for differentiating celebs. Influencers will play a substantive role because they will probably mop up a lot more of the low entry, which I think Satyaki spoke about, and I think infinite number of Satyakis are present there wanting a influencer strategy rather than a celeb strategy. I think from an overall standpoint, it is going to be more or less similar. The mix and the blendedness of it is going to change. And I think we are going to see an exciting phase for the next 18 to 24 months in how this space shapes up. I think it will definitely go up for 2 reasons. One, for a fact that you need certainly rapid awareness to be built up.
Sorry, Sundar, but just here is also an audience poll. All of you guys can answer this question. Those who were not on the panel, but otherwise, please go ahead, answer these questions. We'll compile and see some interesting results later. Sorry, Sundar, for interjecting. Go on.
I think it will be in the short term. There will be a demand for celebs, and maybe the top end of the celebs will be more sought after. But I think the fact is, brands have been off air for a matter of speaking for the last 2 to 3 months at least. And suddenly you don't want to fade out of the consumer memory and you want to stay relevant. And for you to do that, there's no better way than using a Virat Kohli or a Tapsi or a Bowman or a Shahrukh or a Salman or a Rohit. So I think that will be important in the show. I think there will be a substantive slash that will happen in the budgets. But if there is any hope of sort of arresting that, you need the IPL to happen. If the IPL happens, I think you will find the monies in the market suddenly come up and come back, and I think that's going to be the bellwether of sorts. As if there is nothing that brings close to 2,000, 3,000 crores of revenue in a manner of 6 to 8 weeks, than an event like the IPL does. So I think let's all hope the situation improves, and if there is a cricket event like that, then consumption will come back, the money will come back to a certain degree, or at least get prioritized to a certain degree, which can catalyze the consumption thereof.
I know we're struggling for time, and one of the advantages of speaking last is that there is nothing left to say after 6 eminent panelists have said their piece. So I will keep it short for many reasons. Very quickly, we are at the very nucleus of the problem. We specialize in aggregating people and communities for a common purpose. And in this day and age of social distancing, we are in a very unenviable place, so to speak. And so it is actually beyond just so to speak. Having said that, I think we are social animals by nature, by DNA. And I do believe, like a few of the other co-panelists have said in the past, that this will change. Okay, I promise not to use the adjectives that Baman said we shouldn't use, also because I don't believe in it. We're facing a circumstance at the moment. We have to adapt, obviously, to the circumstance, given who we are and what we do. But I do believe that things will go back to normal. Of course, there'll be a time, in-between time before we reach that stage. We have to be strong and we have to be adaptable. Obviously, survival, sustainability are the words being used all around. In the business we are in, I think, again, Taapsee mentioned it, digital is playing a larger and larger role in our lives, and certainly in the lives that we lead in the experiential space. It's playing a larger role. We did something a couple of days ago, Sunday actually, I for India. And it was purely digital, as those of you who saw it would agree. The point being, the effectiveness was there. It was a fundraiser. Obviously, because of the situation, people's sentiments are veering toward that, but it served its purpose. Digital will play a larger role. I firmly believe that it will not replace the business we are in. It will only enhance the business we are in and the purpose we drive, towards. So I'm quite clear that things will change. It's a question of time. It's a question of adapting to the challenges we face at the moment. Coming very quickly to the area that we spoke about endorsements, about celebrities, that's not going to change. If at all, it will increase. But as Sundar very rightly pointed out, and Swarnim, it's going to be how relative is this endorsement to the purpose even more now. So I think people are hungry not just to see and hear a celebrity speak. They are hungry about what he or she is speaking about, and as importantly, getting to know the person behind that personality and what he or she thinks. So very quickly, I think things are going to go back to normal. We are hoping sooner than later. No one knows when, but I am an eternal optimist. It's always half full. It's never half empty. So before I come to the impact on, or what I think the impact on talent will be, allow me to just dwell for a moment on the business we're in. And the fact that digital is going to play a larger part, like I acceded to happily a little earlier in my comments. Digital will play a larger part. But what are we in the business of? We're in the business of creating experiences with finite purpose. And if you look at finite purpose, I think the regular ingredients will continue to play a part, but the balance of how much importance each of these ingredients plays. Now, that could be what we see, that could be what we hear, that could be how we treat what we see and hear. And obviously that includes talent among a whole load of other production values. So I do believe that the basics don't change. I believe the balance between the inputs toward objectivity will change. Talking about balance between the inputs towards objectivity, talent plays a huge part. Talent in all the other avatars, but especially talent that manifests itself in people, which is why I go back to what the point I made earlier. And Taapsee actually, agreed, as I'm sure did a couple of others, that it's not just, are we talking about a transaction here, or are we talking about meeting an end? And I think it's about meeting an end. So it's not about transactions. Transactions are a consequence. So I do believe, to answer your question very directly, that talent will continue to play a large role. In fact, I'd like to believe they'll play a larger role in the interim, because it's not going to be as easy to aggregate audiences to listen to the brand communication. And that is the finite purpose of using talent or personal talent in what we do. I do believe that they will play a larger role, but I must add, at the cost of repetition, I must add that it'll go way beyond conventional popularity. It must be the person behind the personality. There must be resonance between who the talent is and what they're standing for in that particular campaign. So I'm an optimist, blame it on that, but I think there's a bit of rationale in my thinking. So like I said, the balance, good question. The balance is going to be toward digital at this point in time, embracing the larger principles of creating experiences, which is the business we're in conventionally. So we've done 2 events in the recent past, one within the Denso Aegis Network group, where we had 30 countries, representatives from 30 countries come together in an event. It was driven out of Stockholm, where they actually had a stage built, where they actually had a host for the evening, a Mandira Bedi in that sense, host the evening. They actually had performances in another country. It was all seamlessly put together. So the medium of distribution, you're right, is shifting towards digital in the interim. The conventional on-ground experiences, for very obvious and evident reasons, will take a while before it comes back, to normalcy as we understand normalcy. But allow me to again reiterate, it will come back because we are social animals.
100%.
So at the moment, it is digital that is ruling or being the medium of experiential or communication. It will all reach